It's only taken 27 games, but Leicester City finally have their first Premier League win of this season and carrying over from the last time that we went down. Thank God. 1-0 win as we defeated Bournemouth on Saturday at the King Power. I'm going to talk through how we got that win, some of the many things that we did well, and some of the areas that I think we need to improve in. But I've got to say, I'm delighted that we've got the win. And this makes me excited for the rest of the season because I think we have a real chance of staying up, especially when we get to the end, when I show you the other results and what the table currently looks like. So let's talk about the game that everyone's seen. It's finished 1-0, and it was definitely a game of two halves, as we'll come to in a moment. If you look at the first half, I think we were pretty good, and I'll explain that in a moment. But what you can see from the overall stats is that, to be honest with you, maybe it shouldn't have finished 1-0. If we look at the overall possession, Bournemouth had more. They had more expected goals than us. Again, this is a bit sad. It kind of shows us that every game so far this season, the opposition are expected to have got more out of the game than we have. Now, of course, a lot of that depends on the game state and what your approach is, but that is a little bit disappointing. We haven't yet seen a full 90-minute performance from Leicester. And one of the reasons for that is this sort of defensive approach that we take, because here in the bottom left-hand corner, we can see the momentum bar. Now, this is something that not everyone's a fan of, but I personally like it because I think it does give you a fairly accurate reflection of what was happening in the game. And what we can see is that in the first half, it was pretty even. We get a goal, and actually, we finished the first half really strongly. We did pretty well there. But in the second half, you can see that it's just all defense, defense, defense. We're just basically waiting for Bournemouth to score, and luckily they don't score. But, I would have liked to have seen this more even first half continue throughout the whole 90 minutes, because I believe that had we have gone that way, we actually would have won this game pretty routinely. I think Bournemouth are a good team. I think it was a bit of a bad day at the office for them last time round on Saturday. But I think, otherwise it was a pretty even game. And I don't think we don't deserve to get anything overall, because I actually think if we'd have played how we did play in the first half of the whole game, we would have been a more comfortable winners. But anyway, let's move on. So this was our starting lineup, and there was one big change, and that big change was that Harry Winks was dropped to the bench, and that is quite a big statement, I think. If you'd have told me this time last season that upon getting back to the Premier League, that Yannick Vestergaard, Harry Winks, Ricardo Pereira, and Abdul Fattah would all not be in the starting 11, I would have thought you're either crazy or we must have signed some absolutely insane players for them to be better than the ones that were so pivotal to our success last season. But that's the way that Steve Cooper's gone. And look, he got a win out of it. And at the end of the day, that's what you're judged on as being a manager. What did this mean? It meant that Jordan Ayew came back into the team, who is, of course, Steve Cooper's favourite player. And it meant that Ndidi moved back from being the box crusher 10 to being part of the double pivot alongside Skip. And they played pretty well together, as we will show a bit later. Buonanotte stayed in the team. I don't think that's a surprise. He's fast emerging as the most exciting player we've got this season. I think Mads Hermansen has overall been our best player, keeping us in so many games. But I think Buonanotte is probably the second best and Ndidi probably the third. So I can see why these guys are keeping their place in the team. But it meant that Jordan Ayew played as the box crushing 10 and Buonanotte started on the wing and drifted in. As for Bournemouth, they made just the one change. They decided to take off... they put in Cliver and they took off Dango Ouattara. That was a bit of a surprise, actually. I thought Ouattara played quite well for Bournemouth last time round as they beat Southampton. And I suspect that they did this because they thought that Cliver might be better at getting adjusting. But as it would happen, Cliver actually got removed from half time and Ouattara came on. So Cliver had the beat. Justin had the beating of Cliver. But otherwise, it was as you were. They played their 4-2-3-1 and they were going for their mid-block pressing. We knew what to expect from Bournemouth. Here you can just see that some people were asking, was actually Buonanotte playing as a central 10. But here you can see very clearly early in the game that this was the structure that we were using. And when we were pressing from the front, it was Ayew and Vardy who were pressing in the 4-4-2 shape, and Buonanotte was back in midfield. So that was the shape, 4-2-3-1 with Buonanotte on the right-hand side drifting in. That's something I've got a bit of an issue with because it often leaves JJ a bit exposed, as you can even see him up here. But luckily in this game, certainly in the first half, it didn't really cost us. Although going forwards, that is definitely an area that many teams are targeting. So let's get on to the first half analysis. And this first half was good. I think there was a lot to like from our performance here. Some good performances from many players, and the way that the team was operating was very nice to see. First thing I want to talk about is playing out from the back. Now, this was one of the big features that Enzo brought to us last season. We have had players that have been good at playing under pressure for quite a while now. We had it in the Claude Puel era and the Brendan Rodgers era, but we never really played out from the back as heavily as we started doing last season. And I think in the modern Premier League, it's really important to be able to do this. I don't think you need to do it all the time, but you absolutely need to be able to do this, because if you can't, you will just get suffocated by the teams with super good presses, as we saw against Arsenal last week. So I want to talk about our defensive dynamic duo that have formed a very good partnership and look quite promising given the relative ages of the two of them. And that's Caleb Okoli and Wout Faes. They had good games and they played very well together. But importantly, what they did, which was really good, is they were able to build from the back. So this is really early on in the game. I think this might even be 30 seconds in or a minute in. And Okoli's got the ball. And he's going to go for this really sort of high risk, high reward pass, breaking the lines. You can see already that Bournemouth players are on their bike. Someone's here to try and press him. And they're trying to cut off the passing lane to Faes. But he keeps his composure and plays a great ball through, and he manages to find Buonanotte. And just by doing that, look how many players now from Bournemouth are caught upfield, and look at this big gap that you can see now between, and it actually gives Buonanotte time to get on the ball. This is why it's important with teams that press, because if you can play around that press, it opens up those spaces, and it means that if you're fast on transition, you can cause problems yourself. Now, actually, from this move, we actually ended up losing the ball because Buonanotte played a bad pass. Probably the only bad pass he played the entire game. Whereas if he'd have found the ball hit to Mavididi, we'd have been well on our way. But what I'm saying is the principle of trying to do this is important. You will sometimes get it wrong. Southampton and Ipswich both had some fairly high-profile blunders at doing it this weekend, and they played some very good teams too. But you're only going to get better at doing it if we practice it, and you do need to do it sometimes. It is, of course, acceptable to pump it along on occasion too. Now, another thing that Faes and Okoli did, which was really well, is they allowed us to play more of a high line. And this is, I think, the first time I've seen this season us push this high up the pitch. So here's 7 minutes into the game. And look at the space now here between Mavididi here and Christensen. We've compacted the game pretty well, but you can see the back three here. You can see Faes has actually emerged to go forward to be the more aggressive of the defensive two to try and win tackles. Okoli's the one that kind of sits back, and if Faes can't get it, he's probably the faster of the two, so he can get back to recover it. But this was good. We did this a lot during the game, and I'll show this a little bit later on because it led to some of our goals with them playing this way. Sadly, we stopped doing it in the second half, but again, I like this, right? I do think Vestergaard is the better passer of the ball than Okoli. But you have to say, and no one's going to deny this, that we know Vestergaard is slow. And when Vestergaard was playing under Rodgers, the reason why Rodgers fell out with him is he knew that he couldn't play his system, which was to push up high to compress the game. Okoli does allow you to do that. And it means that we can be more of a front-footed team, and it means that we can ask more questions of the opposition. And we know that Leicester have been at their best over the last few seasons when we play that way. So this is actually working quite well. And I want to see more of it going forward. Yes, against the real top teams like your Man Cities, your Arsenals, your Liverpools, don't do that. You're probably going to get killed. But we're playing Southampton next. We're playing Forest after that. We're playing Ipswich after that. This would be a good approach against those teams. Another thing that we saw way more of in this game, and I really am happy that we're seeing it again, is Mads baiting the press. What does that mean? It means that he will just have the ball at his feet and wait and do absolutely nothing. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to get one of these front three to come towards him so he can take that player out of the game. Essentially, if you look at him, he stepped up to be another centre-back. Him and Okoli are the two centre-backs, and Wout Faes has become the right-back and Christensen has become the left-back. Again, this is something that we did with Enzo Maresca last season. And here it works. He's managed to lure the player out of Faes into him, and now he can play into Okoli, and Okoli can get us on our way. And yes, this is something that we did a number of times, and again, I want to see us keep doing it. On occasion, it's going to go wrong, but when it works, it allows you to turn defense into attack, and it gets us back to front. And we were really poor at going back to front against Arsenal. I think, if I'm being honest, we haven't been particularly good at going back to front all season long. And this game in the first half was the best that we were doing at it. And it was much more reminiscent of last season. So that's a definite improvement, and it was good to see. And what that allowed us to do is to get Buonanotte on the ball, who is really progressive. Now, as you can imagine, I'm going to come on to Buonanotte a little bit later because he was absolutely sensational in this game. But the point is that platform of Faes and Okoli and building up from the back means the whole unit can move forwards, and we can slide these passes into our more attacking players like Buonanotte. And in this case, Buonanotte gets the ball, he drives forward, and he has a shot from here. Now, this maybe is a bit audacious, and he probably should have played Mavididi in here, but you're entitled to it. You need to have flair players in your team. Someone has to ask the question. Bonanose was the player that asked the question, and ultimately, not only did he get a goal, but he should have got an assist, but Vardy unfortunately missed. So this aspect of the team in the build-up, going back to front and generating chances, especially in that first half, was working well. Good stuff. Right. Another thing that I want to come to is the fact that in recent games, we've been using 3 CDMs. And, that's obviously got a lot of issues with many people. And of course, this time around, what happened is we actually dropped Winks. And I've got to give a little shout out to Locks at Blue Tinted Glasses, who made a video much earlier in the season saying, should Winks be dropped? And everyone called him a madman. But maybe he was just ahead of his time, because that's what we did. And at the end of the day, we did win the game by dropping Harry Winks. That meant it was time for Oliver Skipp to take centre stage in the middle of Park. And I think he is proving to be a very good signing. I think eyebrows were raised at the 20 to 25 million price. But I would say in the modern day Premier League, unfortunately, that's just what players go for. It's not often that you get a bargain. And he's 23. He's good on the ball. He can play this position, and he's only going to improve. I think this guy's going to end up being a mainstay in our midfield, probably for the next 5 seasons. So here I want to highlight that even though he plays at one of the sort of 2, he was the one that was pushing up further, with Ndidi being the one to sit back. Usually when Ndidi is playing in that middle 2, he's the one that goes forward and Winks is the one that sits. But this time around, Cooper changed it. I'm guessing that's just based on form, because Winks, I have to say, was at fault for some of the goals last week. Trossard was getting the better of him, and I think just in general hasn't had a good start to the season, which is a bit unfortunate. So here we see Winks is pushing right up, joining the press along with, at this point, it's now Mabadidi and Vardy. You can see Ayu's furthest man forward, so that's what I was talking about, the 4-4-2 shape. And here you can see Skipp even follows along and tries to press the fullback to whom the goalkeeper's played the ball to. So you've seen he's using a lot of his mobility. Ollie Skipp is one of those interesting ones that he looks a lot older than he actually is, but he's got a lot of energy and a lot of athleticism, and that is important in the modern game. Another thing that I really liked about him is seeing his partnership with Ndidi. And one thing that I wanted to see more of is the 2 midfielders in the double pivot being much closer to one another. Now, this might seem a bit weird, but the reason for this is to allow them to do what's called a bounce pass, which is a very quick pass back and forth between 2 people. And that means that it can entice the opposition midfielders to come towards them and get them to take them out of their shape. And it means that there's like a very quick escape pass to make if you're under pressure. So we were doing this a lot more of in this game. And you can see as well here, we've got the 3-2 shape in terms of building out from the back. That was, again, a feature of our play last season. And it was something that we did very well. So this was good from both Skipp and Ndidi. And really, what Skipp is really giving you is the ability to actually help build in the first place. So again, I want to see much more of this. This is what Winks was doing so much last season, but he's not been as good as it this season. And hence, I guess that's why this change has been made. So Hermansen's got the ball and he's played it out to Skipp. Skipp turns, is scanning the park. What am I going to do with the ball? He's aware of what space is around him, where his teammates are, and what he needs to do to progress the ball, which is the most important thing. Progress the ball. So he gets the ball, he's looking up, and now he plays this ball out to the side. He plays a good 1-2, receives the ball back again, moves forward, and now he tries to slot in Vardy. Now this pass is cut out, but what I'm saying is the overall move is really good, and I want to see much more of this. Perhaps you could say he's trying to do the line-breaking pass a bit too quickly, and that is maybe something I would be a bit critical with Steve Cooper, that maybe we try to transition the ball forward a bit too quickly. But at the same time, some of these players are new to the club, they're finding their feet, and they do seem to be improving. And what I'm saying is, I think overall Skipp is good, and I cannot see him or Ndidi being dropped for the next game. I think we're going to keep it as it is against Southampton. Overall, you can see that Oliver Skipp had some really good stats. Good passing accuracy, 1 key pass, won a lot of aerial duels, which is interesting. Only won 1 out of 5 ground duels, but other than that, he had a very solid game and it was important to the build-up structure. Certainly in the first half, he was good. The second half, because of the approach that we took, he wasn't allowed to shine. And that's maybe the one negative I'd have about both him and the team in general. One player I do want to talk about, though, in terms of building up from the back, is Victor Christensen. Now, I probably do come across as a bit of a hater on him on this channel. I'm not. I think he's a decent player, but I do think that when we play in this particular system, we don't get the best out of him, and it's costing us rather than making the team better. The first thing that I don't like about him is that I think compared to the other players in the back 3, he is nowhere near as good as playing the ball out from the back. Possibly one reason for this is that he wasn't playing in the team last year, although neither was Okoli, although Okoli came from Atalanta, who do have that kind of pedigree. And that means that, yeah, too often he'll get the ball and he just pump it long. Now, as I've said, I haven't got a problem with doing that on occasion, but if you compare him to all the other players that we've got, he's the one that does it the most. And what that means is that if the move's going to break down when we're trying to build from the back, it breaks down when it goes to Christensen. Another thing that I don't like is that when he gets the ball, because he's not so familiar with playing out from the back, is here's what happens in this case. He gets caught on the ball, and this almost leads to a chance from Bournemouth. And in this entire sequence, Christensen actually had quite a lot of time on the ball, and there was no need for this to really happen. That is something that can be improved within time, but again, I'm just saying that I don't really like why he's in the team. I think there are better players that we could pick. And who is the player that we could pick? We could pick Ricardo. If we really want to play this system that Cooper likes, we could have Ricardo on the right-hand side. We could put Justin on the left. Ricardo would be better at bombing forward and joining the attacks. And Justin played as the left-sided centre-back many times last season. We'll come to the reason in a minute as to maybe why Victor Christensen's in the team. But I think even from that aspect, which is the offensive aspect, he doesn't offer you that much. I want to talk a little bit about our lack of threat. So, as has been shown in the stats, Leicester, despite now being 15th, I think we're 18th in terms of our expected XG for the entire season. So that means that we're not expected to score that many goals. And even though we've scored in every game this season, we're actually outperforming the underlying metrics, and we should have scored fewer goals than we actually have. Why is that? Well, one of the big reasons why that is because when we attack, we are more guarded than we were last season. And I'll show you in these clips. So here we've got Bournemouth on the attack, and I've circled Mavididi because what ends up happening is Mavididi receives the ball after a poor cross. And here Mavididi does some really good tricks, maybe a bit dangerous, but we know Steffi, one thing we love about him is he's a bit audacious, another flair player. He does a step over and he manages to get his way all the way up the pitch, driving from this previous position all the way up the pitch. This is what, fully 50 yards that he's run with the ball. Progressive carry, great play. But look at this shot here, and I'd ask you, what is wrong? And if you haven't noticed it, what is wrong is there's a lot of white shirts and there's not a lot of blue shirts. We've got Vardy here with 3 men attracted to him. We've got Jordan Ayew, who I think is a good player and a good squad player, but probably not the player that you want to see in this phase of the attack. And you've got Justin here, who's the fullback that is supposed to join the attack. So first, we're attacking with just 4 players. As I'll show you in a moment, under Enzo Maresca, we attacked with 5. That's why we had the 3-2-5 shape, for exactly that reason. And the other issue is because one of these players who's attacking is a fullback and not a winger, no matter how fast that fullback is, you're going to get situations like this where they are behind the attack. If we were in this shape, but Justin was here in line with Ayew, actually, that wouldn't be such a bad position to be in, because Bournemouth would have a decision of like, okay, Mavadidi's probably going to play it to one of these wingers. What ends up happening because of this attack is Mavididi gets robbed of the ball and loses it. And you could say, oh, well, that's not too good for Mavididi. But I will defend the player here. Because of your structure that you've got here, what can he really do? Look how many people around him. He's about to get snapped on by 4 different players, right? Why Maresca's system works so well is there were obvious angles that you could play the ball to at any time, which would keep you on your way. And here's an example of that. So here's an example from a recent Chelsea game. And who are they playing? They're playing Bournemouth in the Premier League, actually at their stadium. And what's happened here is Madueke picks up the ball and they're on the attack. And you can see that Bournemouth they got 5 back here as well. But look how many Chelsea are attacking with as well. You've got the opposite side winger, an attacking number 8, the striker, Madueke and Cole swap positions. But essentially you've got another box crashing 8 and another winger. And so it's 5 on 5. But look at the body positions. And this leads to a really good chance for them. So I would like to see Steve Cooper be braver. And I think we should be attacking in a unit of 5 rather than 4. I think attacking as a 4 is maybe more acceptable against your Arsenals and your Man Cities and Liverpools and teams like that. But you know what? I've actually noticed that against those teams, we often attack only with a 3, which is even worse, in my opinion. And sometimes the best form of defense is to attack. So that's why I think overall we have a bit of a lack of a threat. And I think the issue is that on paper, you would do that to make you more sound defensively, but we're actually not that more improved defensively either. So I think it's just a net negative overall. That's my opinion. Another issue sometimes with the way that we attack is that some players are getting in each other's way. So here we've got Ayew and Mavididi. Now, what the idea here is that Ayu's actually going to make the run down the line. So Mavadidi's got the option to play him in, and that's a move that we did with Maresca. And that wouldn't be too bad, but the players don't seem as familiar or as well rehearsed at doing this as they were last season. So that's something that we've got to work on. I also think in this example, right, if it is going to be Ayew, I mean, he's right-footed, so he's not going to put the left-footed cross in. So surely this should be Victor Christensen. But then where is Christensen in this attack? So I guess you've got JJ coming up instead. So that's the system. It's either one fullback or the other. And yeah, I think Christensen and Mavadidi often get in each other's way. Now, why Christensen is in the team is that when he does get the ball in these attacking areas, is he can put a left-footed cross in like this. Now, I want to say that actually there's nothing wrong with this at all. If we saw this happening 5 or 6 times a game, then I think the system that Cooper has gone for would make sense. And so that's what my overall question is that this actually, I looked through the entire video and this was the only cross that Victor Christensen put into the box. And I've looked at the last couple of games. I think he's put either 3 or 4 crosses in total. Now, that could be instructions, that could be the game state, but that just says to me that we're carrying someone rather than getting the best use of them. So either we really lean into this and we try to utilize him more. I do have to say, against Spurs in the first game of the season, Christensen was actually a threat multiple times. That's the best he's been in an offensive capacity. So if we're going to use him, we've got to use him in that way. Because otherwise what's happening is that he does get to this position and he offers the overlap, but Mavadidi's not using him. Now, is that because Mavadidi doesn't trust him? Maybe, but then what does Christensen really offer? Difficult to say. But what I'm saying is, like I say, overall, I think he's a net negative for the team. If we were to play Justin on this side, Justin can cross with his left foot, but he could either cut in as well. He's also quite dynamic, and we've seen how good he is with his finishing ability. So that's my suggestion if we were to play this system, although I think you guys won't be surprised to know that I think we should just go back to the 2-winger system, and we should be having Mavadidi and Fatawu, and in this case, that should be a number 8 that's doing the box crashing. So this would be either Buonanotte, could be Ndidi, who was quite good with left-footed crosses last season. Has even got an assist this season doing this, or could be Bilal El Khanous if we can get him into the team somehow. But yeah. But anyway, even though they were a lack of a threat, I don't want to be too negative on that first half, because that first half was still good. And one of the reasons why it was good is using that platform to build, it meant that we could fully unleash Facundo Buonanotte. And this guy is fast becoming a fan's favorite. And they say never fall in love with a lone player, but it's going to happen, guys, if it hasn't happened already. Here are his stats. Really, really good. 1 goal, 1 big chance created, 2 shots on target, 2 successful dribbles, won a lot of ground duels, clearances, tackles, got fouled a few times. Passing accuracy maybe not the best, but that's because he's an attacking player that's trying to make things happen. Very impressive. I'm going to show the goal here, but as always, if you check the link down below, there'll be a link to Fox's Talk. And in Fox's Talk, I've got multiple clips of Facundo, and they're really worth seeing. He was super duper in this game. Should have had both a goal and an assist, and he was just so exciting to watch at almost all aspects of the game. So this is a really good sequence, and this is putting everything that I've just talked about all together in one move, which was great. As we get to this is actually after having another attack. So we've actually sustained an attack here. The ball breaks loose and Fast goes in and makes a really good challenge against Bournemouth's winger here. The ball breaks at Okoli and Okoli manages to get it to Skip. Skip gets the ball and Skip plays it to Buonanotte, and this is Justin up here. And this is something that we look to do under Cooper's system, is try and create this sort of 2v1 overload with one of the 10s or 8s, however you want to see their perspective. And what we're trying to do is play the 1-2, and Buonanotte here is going to make the run down the line. So you see, he does this, and Justin knows this, and he's going to go for the clipped pass over to make this narrow space look like nothing was on, but actually there was something on. And he does it really well, plays it in, and Buonanotte gets the ball. And here we've got 4 men forward, and in this case it's 4v4, so that's not bad. Again, if it was 5v4, we'd have an overload, then it might be even more likely to score. But fair play in this situation, Buonanotte gets the ball, does a quick little shimmy inside, and boom, finishes it right into the top corner. Great goal, great team goal, very well worked early in the game. A great start. It was good to see, and this was just good football all round. Nothing wrong with this goal. This is something to be applauded and encouraged. And here he is telling us all what his name is. Trust me, we know who you are because we want to sign you. Really impressed by him today. So that comes to the end of the first half. Again, if you look at the link below, you're going to see many more clips. But overall, this was our best first half of the season. We said we were good against Palace, but this was even better. And the reason I say that is the stats just really back that up. More possession, better expected goals, 2 big chances. Bournemouth had 0, although I think they had a header near the beginning of the game that I think was a big chance, but I don't know how these things are measured. They had 1 more shot, but they weren't really making us do that much. More passes, the tackling roughly the same. We were the better team in this half. And if at this point in time, if you'd asked me which team is 11th and which team is 16th, I think was the start of the day, I would have thought we were the 11th place team because we looked better. And that was really, really good. And if we'd have kept playing like this, I think we'd have a very, routine and convincing win, probably 2-0, and just see out the last 20 minutes in a fairly boring game in a good way. But that is not what happened. Let's get on to the second half, because this one, I'm sure, like everyone, will drive you insane. So here is the game of 2 halves. On the left-hand side, I've just shown you stats from the first half, but here's the second half. Only 35% possession. Bournemouth has 65, but the expected goals is the painful thing to look at. 0.03. Just 1 shot in the entire second half. That is poor. We only had a 1-0 lead. This is so defensive. This is overly defensive. Bournemouth had 4 big chances, 12 shots in that second half. That's twice as many in the first one. 5 more corners. Just so you know, in total, they had 9 corners. We didn't have a single one, and we didn't have a single corner against Arsenal either. And it's now 26 corners in a row for opposition teams before we've had the one. Crazy. They had more passes, out-tackled us, more free kicks, etc., etc. So we've just completely handed the initiative to Bournemouth here. And the really annoying thing is that this wasn't because of something that Bournemouth did at half-time. This was just because we decided to go this way. So here you can see 57 minutes in. I will say Bournemouth made 1 change at half-time, which is they changed one of their wingers, Clivert, for Otara. But was that the single reason why these were the stats? No, it wasn't. It's just we had decided to be defensive. And I really don't like that about this manager. He could either make changes himself or tell the team not to be so defensive. But it's really clear. You could see sometimes from the way they were defending, they were playing way more narrow and way more compact. And yes, it did work this time. But I think the underlying data suggests that we shouldn't have got away with it. So something that I keep saying in every single one of my videos is, where are the substitutes? Now, before I kept using a clip of John Duran coming on when Villa played us, but I got bored of using that clip. So I finally made a different still for it. But a recurring theme is that Steve Cooper, he doesn't make many substitutes. He makes the substitutes late, but most importantly, he doesn't change the game state. Now, I've always talked about how good a coach Enzo Maresca is on this channel, but I do have to say he also wasn't the best at substitutes. But I think he was better at recognizing what was happening in a game and changing the positions of players to combat what the other team was doing. I don't think Steve Cooper does either of those things. So this was at 63 minutes, and Iraola, after seeing that Bournemouth weren't getting any joy, he made quite a bold change. He took off both their fullbacks and he put on a central attacking midfielder and he put on a winger in Lucas Sinisterra. And what that meant is that not right away, but eventually they went into this 3-5-2 shape. Later on, they also put Enes Unal, who's a striker, on as well. So as you can see, you had Sinisterra on the left-hand side, Alex Scott joined in the middle of midfield. Otaro moved in a little bit more narrow, and they moved Cook back from sort of a CDM into a right-sided centre-back. So they went 3-5-2 to try and attack the game. And here you can see this is right after they come on. You can see that you've got a back 3 shape here. Sinisterra has moved out to the left-hand side. At this point in time, Alex Scott has drifted over to the right-hand side, but he didn't necessarily play as the right-sided player. They kept Semenyo on that side, who was someone we had to watch out for the whole game and who had Christensen kind of in his pocket. Here you can see a little bit later on, you can see they've drifted out to the other side against Sinisterra on the left-hand side. He's now up against Justin, and Scott is drifting around because he's going to be the free man. Now that they've got that additional man in midfield, they're going to get more of the ball. They're going to have more possession, which is what happened, and it means they're going to be able to generate more chances. And then the two of them here combine, and Sinisterra gets the ball here. Justin fouls him, and this led to a dangerous set piece. And this is something that I want to talk about. So far this season, we've actually been very good at set pieces, I would say. We've scored off them, and we've only conceded 1 goal off a set piece, and that was against Arsenal in the last game, and that was in the dying throes of the game. And even that set piece, I think we were a bit unlucky to concede it. We could have been set up a bit better defensively, but it wasn't horrific. In this game, we didn't concede off a set piece, but I think we were very lucky not to. So this was in the first half, and I'm talking about what I thought was a big chance. And here we can see a free header. I think this is for Adam Smith, and he heads it wide. It's not guaranteed to be a goal, but if you look at where he is and he's got a free header, you've got to at least get that on target, right? Now, what happened from that chance that I just showed you is the ball gets played in and it actually does go into the back of the net. But luckily for us, it's ruled out for offside as it came off Evan Nilsson's hair. Now, yes, literally hair, a little bit like mine being quiffed up. Now, what I will say is that, if he wasn't in offside position, I don't think it's a fact, and it did technically touch him. But if he didn't touch the ball at all, or he had a haircut, it would have just gone straight in and it would have been a goal. So that's two that they could have scored off. There's a third one that I didn't show where they actually managed to hit the bar, sorry, the post actually as well, which was again from an Adam Smith delivery. So they had 3 set pieces and were unlucky not to score off them, especially given that one actually went into the back of the net. Overall, I still think we're good, but I just want to call out that I think in yesterday's game, that was the avenue that looked most likely for Bournemouth to get in. And I do fear if that goal had stood, what had happened, because we'd offered nothing until this point in the game. And I don't know where the game would have gone afterwards, but it's if, buts, and maybes, and it didn't happen. Coming back to the 2 subs, again, showing you the threat that they created. His Sinistere gets in down the wing. He puts a cross goes to Atara, who jumps and leaps, and he hits the crossbar. So the goal's starting to leave a bit of a charmed life here. And this is why you can see they had these 4 big chances in the second half. And, given that they had that much dominance in the second half, they will consider it unlucky and a bad day at the office, and on another day that they could have got at least a point and maybe all 3. It would be hard to argue that with the underlying data. But at the end of the day, we've managed to keep firm and see them out for the 1-0 win. Coming back to the subs as well. Again, this is my recurring theme, is I want to call this out. So you can see that actually, after these 2 subs by Bournemouth, both of whom impacted the game heavily, as you can see in their ratings, the subs that we make to try and change the game, which was Bobby Reid and Fatawu, they're not made until the 82nd minute, so almost 20 minutes later. And in fact, you can see that other than Edouard coming on from Vardy, Bournemouth make all 5 of their subs with still 10 minutes of the game to go. Whereas for us, we wait until the 82nd minute. So after this change to make 2 more changes. And then we put Samare, of all people, on later. Interesting that it was Samare, not Winks. Has Cooper fallen out with another player in the dressing room? That was no Vestergaard, no Winks, no Ricardo. None of them on the pitch for even a single minute. At least Fatawu got on, I can say, which was good to see. But very frustrating. And of course, Bobby Reid got on, but no Casey McAteer. And there were no academy products in the entire squad today. So no Hamza Chowdhury, no Casey McAteer. And that breaks a streak of over 200 games where there has been an academy product in the squad, which is rather tragic, if you ask me. It was Arsenal. So I want to talk about key substitutes. So these 2 did come on with 10 minutes to go. And I do actually think that this change helped us see out the game. One of them did very well, one of them did not so well, and you can probably guess which one is which. So Fatawu came on the pitch, and Mavididi came off the other side. He was replaced by Bobby Reid. But what Fatawu immediately did is he helped us get further up the pitch. And in fact, our shot and chance came from him. So here he's on the ball. He's already moved up the pitch quite nicely with the ball, and he gets fouled and the ball gets put out of play. But you can see that he's managed to carry the whole team upfield. Here's another example where he received the ball here. He's nutmegged Atara, and he's on his way. And he moves all the way up. Now, the only thing that is a bit bad, and I will say that this is still something Fatawu needs to do, is he's rather wasteful here. He's crowded out, and he tries to go for this pass in here, but it just goes to no one. Now, what you could say, like my clip of Mavididi earlier in the presentation, was that who can he even aim for? Right, this is a problem with the system. And I think that this ball that he's trying to play, he's playing it going on Maresca muscle memory, because he's expecting the attacking 8 to make a run inside to out to receive the ball in a half space. But that's not how we play. That's a bit of a shame, but it does show you again that Fatawu really gets us up the field. And what I would ask here is that then why did we bring Bobby Reid on? If we'd have had Mavididi and Fatawu on both sides, that would give you so much more threat going forwards and would really put the game on the knife edge. Would still make us quite defensive too, because both these guys have good tackling stats. So again, my recurring theme is I don't like the system that Cooper plays, but it was good to see Patel on the pitch. He was actually used on the right-hand side, not the left, because that's the stupid thing that Cooper's done a few times, and he looked better for it. And it did almost lead to a goal. Here he receives the ball here. We're attacking with the 4. You can see Edouard's making the run and Vatawu tries to slide them in, but unfortunately it got cut out. That was unfortunate because this was a good move otherwise. He's probably a bit rusty from not playing so many games. And I do think it's fair to say that at the moment, Vatawu has looked a bit wasteful on the ball, but he is still a young player and you need to give them game time. It's not a surprise that Buonanote's looked better and better the more that he's been in the first team, for example. Same with Okoli. And so, yeah, he can see it gets cut out, and unfortunately, the move's over. Now, the player that also came on that didn't do so well was Bobby de Cordova-Reid. And actually, I said in the instant match reaction that he did do well, but he didn't really. There were at least 2 instances where he got caught out, which led to a dangerous turnover for Bournemouth. So here, the ball's gone high, and he's going to receive it. And then the ball hits the deck, and he's actually got it under control here. So there's many things that he could do here. But unfortunately, what he does is he dawdles on the ball, and he gets robbed of it by Alex Scott, and Bournemouth are on their way. And really, he's got multiple things that he can do. He's not aware that the man is chasing him. Probably dribble the ball into this area. I mean, if he has to, just run it down and just keep hold of the ball. It's the 91st minute. The worst thing you can do is be caught in being indecisive. And unfortunately, that's what he is. And he loses the ball. But at the end of the day, these 2 subs coming on did help us see it out. Samare came on as well, who's here number 24, who's replaced Skip. And we managed to see the game out. And it finishes 1-0. And that is, as I say, our first win of the season. And God, did we need it. And it's come, well, it's always an important time to get a win, if you ask me. Just want to call out some things. So I said at the start of the show that Fass and Okoli built up a good partnership. And you can see from their stats that they were really, really good. Lots of duels won. I think what was unusual was that in this game, we weren't so good aerially. Okoli only won half of his. Fass only won 1/3 of his. And I'm not really sure why that is. I didn't realize that Bournemouth were so physical like that. I'm guessing that Evan Nilsson did well in terms of winning a lot of the aerial battles. But overall, they still did really good. And I think they both had solid games. And it's one of the reasons why we got the win. Looking at some of the closing thoughts then, here's the match stats from SofaScore. And yeah, it's kind of funny how you can see that like who are back, 4 of the back 5, if you include the goalkeeper, had really strong games. So that's why we managed to see the game out. Okoli and Fass having really solid performances. You can see that Buonanote was the star man with 8.1 after that goal, but it wasn't just that. He had like a really nice move that Vardy should have scored from too. Looking at Bournemouth, you can see that, yeah, this is another reason why I'm not that much of a big fan of Christensen. Semenyo's basically made him look poor by getting the better of him. Interesting that their CDM's got a better performance. I think this is probably because they won a lot more duels, but I think this is a little bit of a lie because what did they really do in the game? And both of these were actually removed at points in the game to put more attacking subs on. So this one I don't necessarily agree with. But other than that, you can kind of see that their attackers weren't good because our defenders got the better of them. And our attack wasn't so good, well, because I don't think we generated enough chances in the second half. That's what I'd go with there. So what are my match thoughts? The first half was good. If we played like that for 90 minutes every week, we're going to stay up. And I think we'd stay up pretty comfortably. I think we looked like a mid-table team in that first 45. And that is still good to see because I think of the teams that are struggling right now, Southampton and Wolves, they look in trouble. Ipswich, I saw the highlights of them playing against the West Ham, the extended ones, and they've got a young team, and I think they look quite naive. Look, we're playing them in a few games' time, so we'll find out for sure. But I think of all those teams, we look better than them, and we only need 3 teams worse than us to stay up, so that's important. I think Cooper's system could actually work, but I don't think it's as good as Enzo's system, either defensively or offensively. But I try and be objective in this channel, and in the first half, we played well, and lots of aspects of his system did work correctly. So a lot of people like Luke, who is a really good friend of mine at LCFC Down Under, he really hates him. But Cooper is not a useless manager. I don't think he's a great manager. I definitely don't think he's as good as Enzo. But I think it's unfair to say that Steve Cooper is a clueless manager. That's not true. I will say, though, that I think Cooper was a coward in the second half. That's my nickname for him, Coward Cooper, because I'm sorry, my stats back up that that's true. Right? He does not attack. 0.03 XG when you've got a 1-goal lead. You're asking for trouble. I don't like seeing that. You could get the second goal and close it off there. And we've got a team good enough to do that. We weren't playing Arsenal this week. We're playing Bournemouth. The underlying data shows that Bournemouth deserved something from the game, but a win is a win. Yeah, let's be honest. If you take the 3 points, no matter how you get them. We also showed we can play out from the back against Premier League opposition, but I think we need to do it more because that led to a lot of our attacks. And actually, we didn't do it in the second half anywhere near enough what we did in the first. And why? Was that a deliberate, conscious choice that we didn't want to risk doing that? But it was working. I don't see why we stopped doing it. And the other thing that I find really unusual, I've said it before, but no Vestergaard, Winks or Ricardo used at all in this game. I cannot believe that is the case. All of these were star performers last season. Seems a bit weird to me, but end of the day, we got the 3 points, and that's what a manager will be judged on. Looking at results from this match week, they went in our favour. Ipswich lost. Everton did get a draw, but they're still below us because we got a win. Southampton lost, and of course, we beat Bournemouth. Wolves lost as well, conceding 5 against Brentford. I expect their manager's going to get replaced in this international break that's coming up right now. And what that means is, this is what the table looks like. Stop the count. Let's stop the table right here, right now, and move on to next season, if you ask me. We're up to 15th. Incredibly, we're just 1 point behind Manchester United. They are having a disastrous time, given how badly I think we've been playing so far this season. We, in fact, even have the same goal difference as them, -3. But you can see we've put 3 points between us already against Crystal Palace. That really makes that last-minute penalty that Cody gave away even more of a stinker, because otherwise we'd have had 2 more points and would be would have been 7 points clear of the relegation zone if we got that point. So that shows you how competitive the division still is. But at the end of the day, if after 38 games played, we're at 15th, that is a job well done. It's as simple as that. I will say, though, that 6 points from 7 games, that is below the 1 point a game average that you probably need. We've got Southampton next, though. If we were to beat them, then we would be at 9 points from 8 games. And that is, of course, where we want to be. So huge game coming up. And yeah, speaking of that, so a few games ago I did this, I've been doing this on the channel. I will update it, I think, after the next one. And now after we've played Bournemouth, we've actually got 5 points out of 12. I think we needed 2 more. I think we need another win to get the 7 out of 12. But it's not the worst in the world. It's okay, I suppose. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed what I had to go for. Again, if you go below, you'll be able to see the link to Fox's Talk, where I'm going to give you a few more clips and go through things in more detail. If you like the channel, would love it if you could like, subscribe, share it with other people. I'm trying to get the channel to grow. But please let me know what you think. Am I being unfair on Cooper? Am I being right? Do you like his defensive approach that we use in the second half of games? Or do you want to see us have more of a go? And what do you make of this possible player fallout in leaving out Winks, Ricardo and Vestergaard from the team? You give me your thoughts. Other than that, thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.